you guys found that video on intermittent fasting kind of interesting. Uh, I'm not saying, first of all, as a disclaimer, I'm not saying everybody should go out and do that. And actually, I've seen some like evidence or some experts say that like when you're young and your body's developing, that intermittent fasting really maybe isn't the way to go. It's more designed for like adults. So in no way do I want you to take this as Tylutki's recommending this for everybody. In fact, I think humans are really complex things that I've kind of gone over and talked about a little bit this semester. But I think diet is like many things, like your relationships or the amount of physical activity you have, or, maybe what job or, profession you should enter. I feel like it kind of looks different for everybody. And intermittent fasting might be a great answer for some people. Other people might not work at all. I will say the first time that I heard about it, well, first let me backtrack. I've struggled with weight my whole life. I've been a weight yo-yoer where I'll go up and down. And, it used to be like when I was in high school, I was really engaged in athletics and wrestling, and I had to manage my weight. Then I went to college, wasn't in sports anymore, was spending too much time at parties, sitting around the keg and eating pizza, and my weight ballooned up. And then throughout my life, I lost weight for my marriage. We had kids. I gained sympathy weight when my wife was pregnant, back and forth. It was about, I think, 3 or 4 years ago that I first heard of intermittent fasting. And I'm a person that's tried every diet out there. You might know some people in your life that are like that too. Maybe you got a mom or a dad or uncle or grandma or somebody that's constantly on the latest fad diet. Well, that was me for a lot of years, where I tried a lot of different things and would get mixed results. I think most diets out there, if you really stick to the diet and follow the plan and you don't cheat, generally they tend to work for most people out there. It doesn't mean it's right for you, because what's the best diet for you? The best diet is the one that you'll actually stick to and follow, and you can kind of create that, regimen and discipline and routine in your life. And it was about 3 or 4 years ago that I first heard of intermittent fasting. Now, Tylutki's own personal problem is I'm a total sugar addict. We haven't talked much about sugar, but I think there are some concerning aspects of sugar and how much Americans consume it. I'm one of those people. I love sweets. I love chocolates, cookies, all that kind of stuff. And that's the thing that would unrail me on basically every diet that I've ever tried. Was I would stick to it for a while, and then, man, some night I'm just going to have that moment of weakness, and I'm going to eat a cookie, and one cookie turns into 10 cookies. And then, the next week I'm eating cookies every night, and bam, I'm off the rails. And, I totally ruined the diet, and I'd kick myself and be so angry about it. Well, intermittent fasting kind of appealed to me because, it's like she said in kind of the beginning of the video, it's not necessarily what you eat using this kind of a philosophy or this kind of a diet. It's when you eat, where they're finding that certain people, like if they just shrink that amount of time, that window that they're eating, as long as they're eating some healthy foods too and getting like all the nutrition they need, even if they do eat some of that crap and the sugar, that their body can process it in such a way they have that short eating window that they don't necessarily like gain the weight, or maybe it helps out their blood metrics and things like that when they go in and get their blood drawn, and what their cholesterol is and things like that. I found that intermittent fasting works really good for me. It's the one diet that I've really kind of stuck to for an extended period of time, like years and years of my life. Now, definitely, you look at me, and those of you that know me and have actually had me in class, I'm not the epitome of fitness. I've got a belly. I've always kind of been battling with weight. And I'll admit, I should lose another 20 or 30 pounds from where I'm at. But since doing intermittent fasting, that helped me. Like before I started doing it, I was up at about probably 250 pounds, way too heavy for somebody at my height. Doing that intermittent fasting over about a year period, I was able to cut down to around between 200 to 215. I'd kind of float in there. And I've been on that for a few years now. And I can say I always eat good food every day, but I almost always eat some junk food every day too. And I try to shrink my eating window down where I'm only eating for a couple hour period in the evening. When I first did it, it was super hard because it was like I was starving at school. I was used to eating breakfast and lunch. I had always heard breakfast is the most important meal of the day. So I'd get up and make eggs and have a healthy breakfast. I'd have a pretty decent lunch. And then by the time I'm home and I'm tired and it's evening time, that's when I'd crack and I'd eat a bunch of junk food too after I ate maybe a decent dinner, but then I'd add on a bunch of extra junk. And that was always making my weight like balloon up. So Getting rid of breakfast and lunch was really hard because for several weeks while my body adjusted, I would be starving at school. I'd be hangry and get mad and moody, and man, it was tough. But after about 3 weeks of it, my body just got used to. Well, you're not going to eat in the morning. My body was burning fat through that time. And I just got into the routine of I never ate until at least 2:30 when school released. And a lot of times I'd push it back till more like dinner time. And then I'd kind of pig out and I'd eat like a whole day's worth of calories right in the evening there. And I'd probably have a snack on it. And what I found was, over about 3-4 years of doing this, I haven't really lost a ton more weight. I haven't got down to my goal weight of like 180, 190, kind of in that range, but I have definitely stabilized at like 210 for a very extended period of time. Now I need to cut the sugar out and get down to my goal weight, and then I could probably go back to what I'm doing right now and just maintain. So anyway, I thought I'd share my experience. I do like the idea of intermittent fasting. It's something that's kind of worked for me. Again, I'm not saying everybody should go out and try it, but I thought it was an interesting idea. And I'm kind of curious, you guys at your age in life, you kind of have a faster metabolism, most of you. Some of you might have been on diets before too. Many of you probably have never thought of it, and you just kind of eat what you want. I think I was more that way when I was in high school and I had sports and athletics and was able to burn it off. But now we live in kind of weird times and we're home more than ever. We're sitting around the house. It's easy to be snacking all day. And sports, well, who knows if those are going to be running or not or what's going on. So a lot of you aren't getting the same amount of physical activity you normally would. So maybe it is time that you start thinking about what you put into your body and what you're consuming if you haven't already. So I'm also, like, in addition to wanting to share this with you and my experience and kind of get some feedback on it from you, I'm curious, have you guys tried any diets? Have you thought anything? Have you put any thought into this topic? Yeah, I'm curious what you have to say. I kind of lay out the questions on the notes here, so specifically respond to the questions as I pose them there. I'm kind of being general and vague right now. And then the one other thought that was popping into my head, another thing that I like about intermittent fasting, and this is something that wasn't why I tried it in the first place, but I did. It appealed to me in a way because I'm older than you and I'm thinking about my mortality and how long I'm going to be on this earth. And there's a lot of research coming out that, your body weight and what your daily activity level is and your routines and what you're putting into your body, it's going to really tie into your longevity. Now, when you're 15 years old, you're feeling like, I'm just never going to grow up. Childhood's kind of like lasting forever. When am I going to get out of high school and have freedom? You're not thinking about like the back end of your life when you might be 80 or 90 and how, able-bodied you'll be. But once you get to my age and you're 40, you do start thinking of that. You start feeling that time slipping away. So what I'm kind of getting at is, I want to eat in a way that I'll age well and that I give myself the best chances of living a really long life. Intermittent fasting, I think, holds some merit there from what I've learned about it, because how we age, there's a lot of things that go into it. I've heard it's like 1/3 your genetics. Just like that's out of your control, just what your parents put into you when they made you. And then it's about 2/3. Two of those third chunks are like lifestyle choices, which are totally under our control. It's like how much exercise we get, what we eat, all of that, our routines, what kind of job we choose. Genetics wise, all of my grandparents have lived up to around 90. So I have that going for me. But I feel like in a lot of ways, maybe I've squandered some of that because I eat too much junk and I often don't get enough physical activity and all that. Well, they have shown research now that one of the aspects to how you rate age is your DNA inside your cells at that microscopic level are constantly splitting and replicating. All of your cells are living things, and all your cells die off, and it doesn't mean you die, but your cells are replacing themselves. Well, every time your cells split and that DNA strand copies itself, you have a little cap at the end of your DNA called a telomere. And every time it splits, your telomere gets shorter and shorter and shorter and shorter. And that definitely impacts our aging. They don't fully understand it yet. They are working on magic pills that would prevent your telomeres from like shrinking up and maybe like stop the aging process or really slow it down. I do think that that's an interesting thing that I'll probably get into next semester, if you're still in the class, like talking about aging and how that all works. And it sounds like there's some really like miraculous things maybe right around the corner in the next 5 to 10 years that'll probably benefit you guys that, conceivably humans might not live 80, 90, 100 years. They might be living 150, 200, 250 years. Again, that's not science yet. That's still speculation, but it sounds like there's some really promising research and new like supplements and things that we'll be able to take that that might benefit me and probably for sure will benefit you guys. Anyway, something you can do on your own is every time you eat food, your body has to use a ton of energy to break that food down to get more energy. Okay. So I know some people that eat small meals throughout the day. I had some friends that works great for, and they keep their weight down and they feel good on it. But your body is constantly using energy and your stomach is breaking food down all throughout the day. Whereas in intermittent fasting, if you shrink and only eat into an 8-hour window or a 6 or even a 4-hour window or something like that, your body gets a break from breaking down food, and it actually can put more energy into replicating that DNA properly and like not shrinking your telomeres. I know that's kind of weird scientific stuff that I don't totally understand. But the guy that I heard talk about it was not this lady from the TED Talk. He had a pretty good convincing spiel on it that like intermittent fasting is a good way to eat if you're trying to like extend your life and live longer and help your body age better. So apparently, like if you're eating in a really short window of time, you can dump more food in there. Your body has to put tons of energy into breaking that food down, but then you're giving it a longer time where it doesn't have to break that food down. And apparently after 12 hours of fasting, here's kind of the magic number, that at 12 hours where your body has had nothing in its stomach, that's when your body is most optimally like repairing cell damage and splitting that DNA properly and efficiently. And then everything past 12 hours where you're not eating, your body is still doing that replication and kind of renewing itself better. So I've heard other people, and this is in a lot of world religions, so we might come into this next semester when we hit our religion unit, a lot of them have components where it's like they do a fast for a day where you just don't eat anything. Now, I'm not advocating that or saying you should, but maybe there is a little bit of science to some of that old mysticism and religion stuff that is kind of good for the human body. So anyway, all I can say is it's kind of worked for me. I usually do about between a 16 to 20 hour window where I don't eat, and I try to eat in about usually a 4 to 6 hour window ballpark. And then I'm not ironclad on that every day, especially now that we're in remote school and shut down. I'm at home all day and tempted by snacks. So I've definitely not been perfect at it, but I still try to not eat until in the afternoon, eat at dinner time, have my snack, and then go through the next day where I'm not eating anything. I was initially really worried too that like my energy levels would be way low during the day, and that it would screw me up and just like activity wise, and I'd be hungry. And that was the case for the first few weeks of me trying it. But I did find that after my body adapted, now I feel like, and this is really kind of bizarre to me, it was one of my biggest surprise with intermittent fasting, that I actually feel like I have more energy through the day when my body is just burning fat and the calories from yesterday evening. I feel like my energy levels are really high. And days where I do kind of like fall off the wagon and maybe I eat breakfast or I eat a lunch or have something early, I find that it makes me really sluggish now. It makes me tired and I crash and I can feel like, oh, that just drained all my body's battery and energy power. And now I'm focusing on burning food, and it kind of takes my energy level down a peg. So all I can say is I feel like it's kind of worked for me. I'm still definitely not saying I have all the answers, but I thought it was an interesting thing. And right here at the end of the semester, I'm throwing a lot of random stuff at you because we didn't really have time to hit a whole nother like unit. So I hope you're liking some of these random topics we're hitting. And I'm curious to hear what you guys have to say about the topic of dieting and what you eat. See ya.